Greetings, everyone. My name is Emma Velasco, and I'm the chairman of the St. Andrew Society of Detroit. I'm here to welcome you and your guests to Robert Burns Night 2021. We're having a virtual celebration, and we're so glad that you can join us. You'll be able to have a little drink, you'll be able to have something to eat, and you'll be able to join all of our guests in celebrating all things Robert Burns tonight. So pull up a chair, get comfortable, get ready to have some fun and learn some history. And first, we're going to start things off with a little bit of a serious note and ask Dean Hunter to lead us in grace. Dean Hunter?
Good evening, fellow Scots and friends of Scots on this Burns night. We welcome you to this dinner. It has long been the tradition at a Burns night dinner to offer the Selkirk grace, a grace attributed to Robbie Burns. In fact, a version of it existed in the 1700s, known as the Galloway Grace, and it existed in the dialect of the Lowland Scots. For tonight, the traditional blessing attributed to Robbie Burns. Let us pray. Some hae meat and cannot eat, and some would eat that want it. But we hae meat, and we can eat. Say, let the Lord be thanked. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Hunter. Now it's time to start the festivities as our piper, Dave Martin, pipes in the haggis. And the toast to the haggis tonight will be delivered by our friend at the Chicago Scots, Gus Noble.
The Chicago Scots and the Detroit Scots are besties. For many, many years, we've enjoyed a great friendship through personal connections and organizational connections. And this Scotsman wishes all of you in Detroit and across Michigan good health, every happiness, peace and purpose, luck and love in the times ahead. Cheers. For your honest, sonsy face, great chieftain of the puddin' race, aboon them all you take your place, painch, tripe, or therum, and we'll are you worthy of a grace as lang as my arm. The groaning trencher, there ye fill, your hurdies like a distant hill, and your pin was helped to mend a mill in time o' need, while through your pores the dews distill like amber bead. his knife, see rustic labour dicht, and cut ye up wi' ready slicht, trenching your gushing entrails bright like ony ditch. And then, oh, what a glorious sight, warm, reeking, and rich. Then horn for horn they stretch and strive, deal tight the hindmost, on they drive till all their wheel swell kites belive are bent like drums. And then all goodman maced like to rive, be thankit hums. Is there that over his French ragout, or olio that would store sow, or fricassee that would make her spew with perfect scunner, looks down with sneering and scornful view on sic a dinner. Poor devil. See him ower his trash, as feckless as a withered rash, his spindle shank a good whiplash, his neve a knit. Through bloody flood or field to dash, how unfit. But mark yon rustic, haggis fed. The trembling earth resounds his tread, clapping his wally neve a blade, and he'll make it whistle. And then legs and arms and heads will sned like the top of a thistle. Will you powers what make mankind your care, and dish them out your bills of fare? Auld Scotland wants nae skinking ware that joups and luggies. But if you wish her grateful prayer, gie her a haggis. To the haggis!
To the haggis!
To the haggis!
Thank you so much, Gus, for that rousing toast to the haggis. We're truly honored to have you with us tonight. And now I'd like to introduce our society bard, Elliot McFarlane, who will share with us the immortal memory.
Good evening, my friends, and welcome. My name is Elliot McFarlane, and I have the honor of being somewhat of a master of ceremonies, clock watcher, whiskey advisor, main speaker, and general catch-all. Tonight, we come together to honor Robert Burns. Robert Burns is recognized the world over for his work focusing on universal themes of love and nature. He's known not just in Scotland, but throughout the world long after his death. He died over 200 years ago, so why is he still so popular today? He was a farmer's son. He could speak with the common man. His life growing up among the ordinary people of Scotland meant that he could write about nature and hardship as well as love and family because he lived it. He also led a colorful and varied life, which exposed him to different sections of society. He was born in a small Ayrshire town in 1759. His father was a tenant farmer. He was well read, his education both at home and at school, and he began writing and reading at an early age, even on his father's farm. Burns' first collection of poetry, called Poems, chiefly in the Scottish dialect, was published in 1786 and includes a favorite, Tuamos. It became known as the Kilmarnock edition after the town where it was published, and all copies were sold within a few weeks. He published a second edition of his poems, but his popularity still did not make him wealthy. He liked to drink, and due to his lifestyle, money made from writing did not last long. In 1787, he's working on a farm again, and in 88, despite his increasing radical views, he took a job in the excise service, which made him a tax collector. The hard work of the job entailed a dissolute lifestyle that took a toll on Burns's health, and he died in July of 1796 at only the age of 37. The main reason that Burns is so popular today because of the themes and language of everyday life that he used. His poems are humorous. He used small subjects to express great ideas. And even those that have a tougher finish to them, people find entertaining and interesting. Burns was a champion of the Scots language at a time when it was not popular in literary circles. And though his works are still exposed today as works in the Scots language, they cover a variety of Scots, English, and Gaelic. In writing, he paved the way for Scottish writers like James Kelman, James Robertson, Irvin Walsh, and the same continues today. He's often left a long legacy of romantic poetry that's still sung and recited today. But this is partly because that's the life that he led. He was, as we would say today, a ladies' man. He had at least 8 children, many of them with his wife, and many more, maybe another 8, that we're not sure about. However, he wasn't always the rogue that he seemed. He was influenced by female writers of the time. He said that women were entitled to education and a place in society, which was not common in the period. The songwriting ability of Robert Burns, and the best things that came out of Scotland when he wrote them, has led people like Lennon and McCartney and Bob Dylan to cite him as an inspiration for their work. Burns was also musical himself. He played the violin, the guitar, the stock and horn. It was evident that he had a strong ability to read music and record it, write it down, as he was learning it. He's influenced 18th, 19th, 20th, and 21st century writers since he began. A Catcher in the Rye by Salinger, certainly Coming Through the Rye, the song, John Steinbeck's Of Mice and Men. These are just a few of well-known works based on a love of Robert Burns. His ability to empathize with the human condition makes him a universally loved poet, songwriter, and important cultural figure well over 200 years after his death. Burns is often mythologized in Scottish life and literary circles, especially at this time of year when we hold Burns dinners. But what's interesting about him as a farmer's son and his dubious reputation, and his womanizer, and later as a tax collector, was that ultimately he became a legacy based on his work, his love of the spoken word and singing of song. And his life and varied career brings us forward to the way Robert Burns is seen today. He may be the greatest poet in the English language and the Scottish language. He's certainly Scotland's greatest songwriter. And this modern image of the nation of Scotland is based in some, if not large part, of what Robert Burns left us as an image of Scotland. In one short lifetime, between the ages of 15 and 36, he left us historical detail, social interaction, philosophical debate, songcraft, archive music, and confidence in Scotland as a nation. But there is a lot more to Robert Burns. All of us can understand him better the more we read of his work. He wrote movingly and lovingly and lyrically. He wrote about emotions because he had so many. He wrote wittily, he wrote memorably, he wrote about hypocrisy, not the least of which included the Scottish Church. But in his celebration, there is brotherhood, there is social equality, there is honest toil, and just reward for those who do the work. Robert Burns left an extraordinary body of work in both Scots and English. But if he'd written nothing else than his poetic fanfare for the common man, he would still be deserved to be respected, honored, and remembered. Tonight, we will hear the words and music of Robert Burns, and we will remember the story of his all too short life. We have some pipers and readers and singers, and you've got a chef. There'll be some group singing and toasting and maybe a few surprises. Relax, enjoy yourself, take off your tie if you were silly enough to wear one. Keep those glasses full, and stay away from those special whiskeys you may have pre-ordered, and keep note of where they come in the program. Remember, Burns dinners were never intended to be staid, stodgy affairs where one worried about the correct use of forks or the amount of food in one's beard. No, indeed. Burns dinners for more than 220 years have been about Robert Burns, and he apologized for nothing. At one time, boys with wheelbarrows were hired to roll the dinner guests home with the rising sun at the end of a Burns night. Heck, you're already home. We are not going to confine ourselves to the readings and songs of just Mr. Burns. Burns nights are about the spirit of Burns and the spoken word and song of Scotland. His works influenced other poets all over the world and still influence other poets. So there'll be bits here and there from more modern fans of Robert Burns. I should like to bring to you now a thing that was written by Robert Burns originally as a song, but has most often appeared as a poem. It's called My Heart's in the Highlands. My heart's in the Highlands. My heart's not here. My heart's in the Highlands a-chasing the deer, chasing the wild deer and following the roe. My heart's in the Highlands wherever I go. Farewell to the Highlands, farewell to the North, the birthplace of valor, the country of worth. Wherever I wander, wherever I rove, the hills of the Highlands forever I love. Farewell to the mountains high covered with snow, farewell to the straths and green valleys below, farewell to the forests and wild hanging woods, farewell to the torrents and loud pouring floods. My heart's in the Highland, my heart is not here. My heart's in the Highlands a-chasing the deer, chasing the wild deer and following the roe. My heart's in the Highlands wherever I go. I'd like to extend a special welcome and thanks to all those people who make this unique annual Burns Night come to fruition. I hope tonight it is warm, comfortable, educational, and vaguely hedonistic, as more than 200 Burns Nights have been before this one. Someone once said, "Shall you be remembered by the quantity of your land, deeds, and goods, or rather by the quality of your good deeds and lands?" I'm no Robert Burns, none of us are, but Burns is here in both quantity and quality for all of us. He once said, "When dark death's stream I ferry o'er, a time that surely shall come, in heaven itself I ask no more than just a Highland welcome." Ladies and gentlemen, a toast to Robert Burns.
There was a lad was born in Iowa, in what the style and all its hardy were the wild, easy, noisy Robin. Robin was a rolling boy, and a rolling, and a rolling. Robin was a rolling boy, and a rolling Robin.
When chapman billies leave the street, and drouthy neighbours meet, as market days are wearing late, and folk begin to tack the gate, while we sit boozing at the nappy and getting fou and unca happy. We think on the lang Scots miles, the mosses, waters, slaps and stiles that lie between us and our hame, where sits our sulky, sullen dame, gathering her brows like gathering storm, nursing her wrath to keep it warm. This truth fand honest Tam o' Shanter, as he frae air ae night did canter. Auld air, wham ne'er a tune surpasses for honest men and bonny lasses. Ah, Tam, hadst thou been sae wise as ta'en thy ain wife Kate's advice, she told thee weel there was a skellum, a bletherin', blusterin', drunken blellum, that frae November till October, ae market day thou wasna sober. That ilka melder wi the miller, thou sat as lang as thou had siller. That every naig was ca'd a shoe on, the smith and thee gat roaring fou on. That at the Lord's house, even on Sunday, thou drank wi' Kurt and Jean till Monday. She prophesied that late or soon thou would be found deep drowned in Doon, or catch wi' warlocks in the murk by Alloway's auld haunted kirk. Ah, gentle dames, it gars me greet to think how many counsels sweet, how many lengthened sage advices the husband frae the wife despises. But to our tale. A market night, Tam had got planted unca right, fast by an ingle, bleezing finely, wi' reeman swats that drank divinely. And at his elbow, Suitor Johnny, his ancient trusty drouthy crony, Tam lod him like a very brother. They had been fou for weeks together. The night drave on with sangs and clatter, and aye the ale was growing better. The landlady and Tam grew gracious, wi' favours secret, sweet and precious. The suitor told his queerest stories, the landlord's laugh was ready chorus. The storm without might rair and rustle, Tam didna mind the storm a whistle. Care, mad to see a man sae happy, e'en drowned himself among the nappy, as bees flee hame wi' lades of treasure, the minutes winged their way wi' pleasure. Kings may be blessed, but Tam was glorious. Oh, are the ills of life victorious? But pleasures are like poppies spread. Ye seize the flower, its bloom is shed, or like the snow falls in the river, a moment white, then melts forever. Or like the borealis race that flit ere ye can point their place, or like the rainbow's lovely form vanishing amid the storm. Nae man can tether time nor tide. The hour approaches, Tam maun ride. That hour, o night's black arch the keystane, that dreary hour he mounts his beast in, and sic a night he tacks the road in, as ne'er poor sinner was abroad in. The wind blew as 'twad blown its last, the rattling showers rose on the blast, the speedy gleams the darkness swallowed, loud, deep and lang the thunder bellowed. That night a child might understand, the deil had business on his hand. Wheel mounted on his grey mare Meg, a better never lifted leg, Tam skelpit on through dub and mire, despising wind and rain and fire, whilst holding fast his gid blue bonnet, whilst crooning o'er some old Scots sonnet, whilst glowering round wi' prudent cares, lest bogles catch him unawares. Kirk Alloway was drawing nigh, where ghasts and howlets nightly cry. By this time he was crossed the ford, where in the snaw the chapman's moored, and past the birks and meikle stane, where drunken Charlie Brack's neck bane, and through the winds and by the cairn, where hunters fand the murdered bairn. And near the thorn aboon the well, where Mungo's mother hanged hersel. Before him, Doon pours all his floods, the doubling storm roars through the woods, the lightnings flash from pole to pole, near and more near the thunders roll, when, glimmering through the groaning trees, Kirk Alloway seemed in a bleeze. Through ilka bore the beams were glancing, and loud resounded mirth and dancing. Inspiring bold John Barleycorn, what dangers thou canst make us scorn. We tippenny, we fear nae evil, we Usquebae, we'll face the devil. The swatsy reamed in Tammy's noddle, fair play he caredna deals a bottle. But Maggie stood, ruch sair astonished, till by the heel and hand admonished, she ventured forward on the light, and wow! Tam saw an unca sight. Warlocks and witches in a dance. Nae cotillion Brent knew frae France, but hornpipes, jigs, strathspeys and reels put life and metal in their heels. A winnock bunker in the east, there sat Auld Nick, in shape a beast, a towsy tyke, black, grim and large, to gie them music was his charge. He screwed the pipes and gat them skirl, till roof and rafters all did dirl. Coffins stood round like open presses that showed the dead in their last dresses, and by some devilish cantrip slight, each in its cold hand held a light, by which heroic Tam was able to note upon the haly table a murderer's banes and gibbet airns, twa span lang wee unchristened bairns, a thief new cutted frae a rape, wi' his last gasp his gab did gape, 5 tomahawks wi' blood red rusted, 5 scimitars wi' murder crusted, a garter which a babe had strangled, a knife a father's throat had mangled, whom his ain son of life bereft, the grey hairs yet stuck to the heft, wi' mair of horrible and awfu', which even to name would be unlawfu'. 3 lawyers' tongues turned inside out, wi' lies seemed like a beggar's clout. 3 priest hearts, rotten, black as muck, lay stinking, vile in every nook. As Tammy glowered, amazed and curious, the mirth and fun grew fast and furious. The piper loud and louder blew, the dancers quick and quicker flew. They reeled, they set, they crossed, they clicked, till ilka carlin swacked and reeked, and coosed her duddies to the work, and linked at it in her sark. Now Tam, oh Tam, had they been queens, a plump and strapping in their teens, their sarks instead of cushion flainin', been snow white 1700 linen. Their breeks o' mine, my only pair, that once were plush o' good blay hair. I would ha' gien them off my hardies, for I blink o' them bonny birdies. But withered beldams, old and droll, ring-woody hags would speen a foal, louping and flinging on a crummock. I wonder didna turn thy stomach. But Tam kent what was what fu brawly. There was aye winsome wench and Wally, that night enlisted in the corps lang after kenned on Carrick shore, for mony a beast to dead she shot, and perished mony a bonny boat, and shook baith meikle corn and beer, and kept the countryside in fear. Her cutty sark, o' paisley harn, that while a lassie she had worn, in longitude, though sorely scanty, it was her best, and she was vaunty. Ah, little kenned thy reverend granny, that sark she coughed for her wee nanny, wi' 12 pund Scots 'twas o' her riches, would ever grace a dance o' witches. But here my muse her wing mun cover, sick flights are far beyond her power, to sing how Nanny lap and flang, a supple jade she was and strang, and how Tam stood like in bewitched, and thought his very een enriched. Even Satan glowered, and fidged fu fain, and hotched and blew wi' might and main, till first ae caper, sin another, Tam tint his reason altogether, and roars out, "Weel done, Cutty Sark!" And in an instant all was dark. And scarcely had he Maggie rallied, when out the hellish legion sallied, as bees bizz out with angry fyke, when plundering herds assail their bike, as open pussy's mortal foes, when pop, she starts before their nose, as eager runs the market crowd, when "Catch the thief!" resounds aloud, so Maggie runs, the witches follow, with money and eldritch screech and hollow. Oh Tam, they'll get thy farin', and hell they'll roast thee like a herrin'. In vain thy Kate o' which thy comin', Kate soon will be a woeful woman. Now do thy speedy utmost, Meg, and win the keystone o' the brig. There at them thou thy tail may toss, a running stream that darena cross, but ere the keystone she could make, the fiend a tail she had to shake. For Nanny, far before the rest, hard upon noble Maggie pressed, and flew at Tam with furious ettle, but little wist she Maggie's mettle. Aye spring brought off her master hale, but left behind her ain grey tail. The carlin clawed her by the rump, and left poor Maggie scarce a stump. Now, wha this tale of truth shall read, Ilk man and mother's son, take heed. Whene'er to drink ye are inclined, or cutty sarks run in your mind, think ye may buy the joys o'er dear. Remember, Tam o' Shanter's mare.
My name's Tom Scott. I'm going to read you a poem from Burns called To a Mouse. Burns, of course, was a farmer, and in this 8-stanza poem, he opens it up in a broad Scots dialect. So I thought I would start by taking you through the poem, stanza by stanza, and hopefully when we get to the actual poem, you'll understand it and enjoy it a little better. Okay, in the opening stanza, we find that having had its nest destroyed, this poor tiny mouse is extremely fearful and afraid. Burns assures the mouse that he does not have to run away, and he would not think of chasing or harming him. In stanza 2, Burns then changes to the King's English, George III, by the way, perhaps to impress his many rich female admirers. So in the King's English, he apologizes to the mouse for the way humanity treats animals. That's why they're afraid. But this is sad because he and the mouse are both earthly companions. Stanza 3. He understands that sometimes the mouse must thieve, steal food to survive. But such a small amount, a daemon icker in a thrave, an ear of corn in a sheaf, will never be missed. Stanza 4. Now that the poor mouse's nest is in ruin, there is no foggage green, grass or moss left to rebuild the nest, and December winds are on the way. Stanza 5. The mouse has seen the bare fields, and that winter was coming. He thought in his nest he would be warm, cozy, and sheltered from the wind. But then the plough blade, the coulter, shattered his nest. Stanza 6. All the mouse's hard work seems now to have been in vain. He has to face the winter weather, and it's cranrich cold, it's icy cold. Stanza 7. But suddenly Burns begins to reflect that the mouse is not alone in proving that foresight may be in vain. The following 2 lines of the penultimate stanza you've all heard before, but probably not from Burns. Stanza 8. Now in the last verse comes the revelation that, compared to himself, he says to the mouse, "Thou art blessed." The mouse has only the present to worry about, whereas, well, I won't spoil the ending. Let's listen to the poem. To a Mouse by Robert Burns. On turning her up in her nest with the plough, November 1785. Wee sleeket towen timorous beastie, oh what a panic's in thy breastie, thou wouldna start away so hasty wi' bicker and brattle, I would be laith to rin and chase ye wi' murder and pattle. I'm truly sorry man's dominion has broken nature's social union, and justifies that ill opinion which makes thee startle at me, thy poor earth-born companion and fellow mortal. I doubt nae walls but thou may thieve, what then, poor beastie, thou maun live? A daemon icker in a three's a small request, I'll get a blessing wi' the lave and never miss it. Thy wee bit hussy too in ruin, its silly was the winds are strewn, and naething now to big a new one, o foggy green, and bleak December's winds ensuing, with snell and keen. Thou saw the fields laid bare and waste, and weary winter coming fast, and cozy here beneath the blast thou thought to dwell, till crash, the cruel coulter passed out through thy cell. That wee bit heap o' leaves and stibble has cost thee mony a weary nibble. Now thou's turned out for all thy trouble, but house or hald, to thole the winter's sleety dribble and cranrich called. But Mousie, thou art no thy lane, and proving foresight may be vain. The best laid schemes o' mice and men gang after gley, and Leah's not but grief and pain for promised joy. Still, thou art blessed compared with me, the present only toucheth thee, but och, I backward cast my ee on prospects drear, and forward though I canna see, I guess and fear.
And now for our third toast of the night, we'd like to welcome Claudia and Cliff Scott in the Toast to the Lasses and Laddies.
I'm Clifford Scott, and I'm doing the Toast to the Lasses. She's little and laughing, all fingers and toes. The best part of fathers is mustache and nose. Everyone's darling. That seems the consensus. Move over, Diana. Here comes a new princess. At 2, she's a terror, a demon in diapers. Her wail could outdo a room full of pipers. To be told she's unhappy, there's seldom a need, for when she starts screaming, your ear holes will bleed. She's weepy and sullen and quick to oppose, and what sets her off, God only knows. If that's not enough to amp up this trend, at 13 or so, she gets a new friend. Now she's pushing 20, no beggar, a chooser, dating some hunks and an occasional loser. That's when she meets him, the one that's just right. She tells all her friends it was love at first sight. Comes marriage and family, housework and stuff, carpools, homework, and enough is enough. Her life is collapsing in a bottomless pit. The kids don't respect her, and her husband's a shit. She's old and alone now, no longer a wife. She's wrinkled and graying, a miserable life. She did take his money to lessen the pain, so she opts for a facelift and a condo in Spain. If you should find them in clothes or only in knickers, living in sin or by behest of the vicars, remember them fondly and lift up your glasses and drink to the health of those wonderful lasses.
And I am Claudia Scott, and I'm doing the Toast to the Laddies. He's cute as a button, all eyes and a smile. He's open and trusting, with no trace of guile. He's new and he's fresh, and just like the rest, his needs are quite simple, a thumb or a breast. 2 years brings a beastie of tantrums and rants, who waits for McDonald's to pull down his pants. He bites his big sister, pulls the heads off her dolls. He shows he's artistic and crayons the walls. At 14 comes hormones, confusions, and zits. Beautiful Gloria and her glorious tits. Those teen years are hell with brief glimpses of heaven, with a perpetual chubby lasting 24/7. Now the lad's 20, a wolf on the make, dating wild hotties and the occasional flake. That's when he meets her, the one that's just right, a girl he could deal with for more than one night. Comes marriage and family with payments and bills, with good times and bad times and fewer big thrills. So at 50, the sod turns into a schemer and gives up his home for a slut and a beamer. He's old now and empty, no family, no wife. He's wrinkled and bald on half pay for life. He looks in the mirror, alone and confused, then pops a wee vessel and pees on his shoes. So if you should find them in kilts or in trews, in church groups computing or swilling the booze, remember them fondly, the goods and the bads. Lift up your glasses, girls, here's to our lads.
I should like to share with you a poem by Robert Frost. Frost freely admitted he was influenced by the work of Robert Burns, and Frost is one of America's greatest known poets. One of my favorite pieces, Stopping by a Woods on a Snowy Evening. Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near, between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. He gives his harness bells a shake, as if to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sound, the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep.
Farewell to all our Scottish fame, farewell our ancient glory. Farewell even to the Scottish name, so famed in martial story. Now Sark runs o'er the Solway stands, and Tweed runs to the ocean, to mark where England's province stands, with a parcel of rogues in a nation. What force or guile could not subdue through many warlike ages is wrought now by a coward few for hireling traitors' wages. The English steel we could disdain, secure in valor's station, but English gold has been our bane, such a parcel of rogues in a nation. Oh, would or I had seen the day that treason thus could sell us. My old grey head had lain in clay with Bruce and loyal Wallace. But pith and power to my final hour, I'll make this declaration. We're bought and sold for English gold, such a parcel of rogues in a nation.
I'd like to thank everyone who worked so hard to put this all together. I can't name every name, but you know who you are. Thank you so much. It's been a wonderful night. I hope you enjoyed yourself. If you're not firmly strapped to your seat at this point, it's time to hang on because we're going into another toast from Kent Richards. After that, we'll wrap up the evening by singing Auld Lang Syne together. Thanks so much, everybody. Happy Burns Night.
Here's a bottle and an honest man. What would ye wish for mair man? What kens before his life may end? What his share may be of care, man? So catch the moments as they fly, and use them as you ought, man. Believe me, happiness is shy, and comes not I when sought, man. Now let's be standing and raise your glasses to Scotland, giving thanks for our ancestors coming to America and retaining their Scottish customs for us to share and enjoy.
Here's our last tune. Robert Burns wrote this, but it was set to a different tune originally, and someone came along and put it to a more popular tune, and it means Old Long Since, Auld Lang Syne. Everyone join in on singing this one. Even if you don't know the words, you'll soon pick it up. Or just say something that sounds roughly correct. And no one ever knows what the Scots are saying in half their songs anyway, so. Should old acquaintance we were gone and never brought to mind? Should old acquaintance we were gone and days of old lang syne? Old lang syne, we'll take a cup of wine as our old lang syne. We tried and added the breeze and both the gowans wine. We've wandered many's a weary foot since old lang syne. Old lang syne, dear, old lang syne. We've wandered many's a weary foot since old lang syne. We transported in the very morning sun till dying, but seas between us lady roared since old lang syne. Old lang syne, dear, old lang syne. But seas between us lady roared since old lang syne. And here's my hand, my trusty friend, and he a hand of mine. We'll take a good weary walk on old lang syne. Old lang syne, my dear, old lang syne. We'll take a good weary walk on old lang syne. Should old acquaintance be forgot and never brought to mind? Should old acquaintance be forgot and